My wife filed for divorce, fully expecting to walk away with half. She forgot about the prenup, the one she signed just to silence her parents. The look on her lawyer's face when he finally read the clauses said everything. She got what she deserved. Nothing, all right, read it. Buckle up because this one and #39. It's a wild ride from start to finish. My divorce was finalized last month, and I'm finally ready to talk about how everything unraveled. My ex-wife was convinced she was about to walk away with half of my life, my business, the house, all of it. What she didn't count on was the prenup she'd signed 7 years earlier. Turns out it wasn't just paperwork after all. The expression on her lawyer's face when he actually read the agreement, absolutely priceless. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me rewind. I'm 34 now, and I've been running my own electrical contracting company in Colorado since I was 26. Right after high school, while most people I knew were off partying at state universities, I went straight into an apprenticeship. It was the hard road, 4 years of low pay, barely above minimum wage, studying code books at night and grinding through certification exams. By 22, I earned my journeyman license. After that, I spent a couple of years on commercial jobs, learning not just the technical side but the business side too. My boss was nearing retirement and started showing me how things really worked. By 24, I'd earned my master electrician certification, which meant I could pull permits and legally run my own jobs. When my boss retired at 64, I bought the business from him. We worked out a payment plan. I put down everything I'd saved, financed the rest, and took over the clients, contracts, and equipment. At 26, I suddenly had the weight of everything on my shoulders. That first year, sleep was optional, but I kept the doors open. The company focuses on commercial and industrial work, rewiring old buildings, installing new systems, emergency repairs, panel upgrades, lighting retrofits. I employ 4 full-time electricians, and we stay busy year-round. When things are steady, the income is solidly 6 figures. I also own the building where my office and workshop are located. I bought it in 2016 when the previous owner was desperate to sell. It was an old automotive garage from the 1970s, nothing fancy, but solid. I picked it up for $180,000, well under market value, and spent about 6 months converting it into a proper electrical shop. I did most of the work myself on weekends. The location is perfect, right off the highway with great visibility. I rent out half the space to an EV charging company, which covers most of the mortgage. The place is now appraised around $650,000, with the loan about halfway paid off before Brittany. My personal life was simple. I owned a 3-bedroom ranch-style house I'd bought as a foreclosure in 2014 for $150,000. It was a mess when I got it, but over 2 years I rebuilt it from the ground up, full rewire, gutted kitchen, refinished hardwood floors, new windows, roof, and HVAC. By 2016, that $150K fixer-upper was worth close to $400,000. My mortgage payment was about $800 a month, cheaper than rent. I drove a used Ford F-250 I bought in 2015. Diesel crew cab, perfect for hauling tools. I maintained it religiously. It's got around 180,000 miles now and still runs strong. My weekends were spent working on the house, doing side jobs, or heading into the mountains. I had friends from my apprentice days, but I mostly kept to myself. After dealing with people all week, I valued peace. I met Brittany in the spring of 2016 at my buddy Kevin's wedding. She was a bridesmaid, I was a groomsman, you know how that goes. She worked as a dental hygienist downtown and seemed sweet enough. She laughed at my jokes, even the bad ones. She was 24, I was 27. We talked at the reception, exchanged numbers, and started dating. The first few dates were normal coffee, dinners, a movie. She seemed impressed that I owned my own business and my own house. She mentioned how most guys her age still had roommates or lived with their parents. I appreciated that she noticed I had my life together, though to me, it just felt like the result of years of hard work. Things moved fast. By summer, we were seeing each other constantly. By fall, she was basically living at my place, even though she kept her apartment just in case. I noticed she never chipped in for groceries or utilities, but I didn't make an issue of it. I earned more, so I figured it evened out. Her parents, though, were a different story entirely. Her dad, Richard, owned multiple car dealerships across 3 counties, real money. Vacation homes, country clubs, that kind of wealth. Her mom, Patricia, had never worked a regular job, but treated running charity events like it was a corporate empire. They lived in a massive house in the hills with a circular driveway and a fountain. I met them for the first time at Thanksgiving in 2016. I showed up in my truck, wearing a button-down and khakis, which apparently wasn't up to their standards. Patricia glanced at my truck like I'd parked a dumpster in their driveway. Richard's handshake felt like a weird power move. Throughout dinner, they asked questions that sounded polite but were clearly about money. So you're an electrician. That's blue-collar, right? Do you plan on staying in that line of work long-term? Brittany says you own a house. Is it in a nice area? I answered honestly and didn't let it get under my skin. Yes, I work with my hands. Yes, I plan to grow my business. And yes, my neighborhood is solid, even if it doesn't have gates and security guards. Brittany looked uncomfortable when her parents started grilling me, but she didn't really step in to stop it either. Still, despite all that, we got engaged in February 2017. I proposed on a hiking trip, nothing over the top. Just the two of us, sunrise, standing above this quiet valley we'd hiked into. She cried, said yes, and for a brief moment, I honestly believed I'd found someone who truly understood me. Then wedding planning began, and that illusion didn't last long. Her parents immediately took over. Patricia had opinions about absolutely everything. The venue, flowers, menu, music, guest list, even what I was supposed to wear. Richard kept dropping comments about how tiny my guest list was compared to theirs. They offered to pay for the wedding, but it came with so many conditions it felt less like a gift and more like a contract. The biggest blow-up happened about 2 months before the wedding. We were having dinner at their country club, their idea, of course, because appearances mattered. Richard ordered for everyone without asking, felt like another power move. Then, out of nowhere, he said it. So we've been talking with our attorney, and we think you two should really have a prenuptial agreement, just to protect everyone. Brittany went pale. Dad, we already talked about this. I know, Richard cut her off. But your mother and I have significant assets we plan to pass down someday. We need to be sure those stay within the family. I kept eating, already seeing exactly where this was headed. Then Patricia chimed in with that sugary tone of hers. It's really just a formality, nothing personal. Just protection in case something unfortunate ever happens. What they meant was obvious. They didn't want the blue-collar electrician anywhere near their money. Honestly? Fine, I never wanted a cent of it. Here's the twist, though. I'd already been thinking about a prenup myself. My business was growing fast. The commercial property was gaining value. My house was nearly finished. I'd spent my entire adult life building what I had, and I wasn't interested in handing half of it over if things ever went sideways. I just hadn't brought it up because I didn't want Brittany thinking I didn't trust her. So when Richard suggested it, I surprised everyone by agreeing. Actually, I said, that makes sense. I've got my business and assets too. Probably smart to keep things separate. The look on Richard's face was priceless. He clearly expected resistance. Patricia looked almost disappointed that there wasn't going to be a dramatic scene. Brittany just stared at me. You want a prenup? She asked. Yeah, I said. I've got the business, the building, the house. You've got your family's assets down the line. We keep what's ours, build together, and if things ever end, there's nothing to fight over. Seems fair. Richard recovered quickly. Well, yes, exactly. I'm glad you're being reasonable. I'll have our family attorney draft something. I'll have my attorney review it, I replied. And we should each have our own representation. Just to keep everything clean. He didn't love that answer, but he couldn't really object without exposing his intentions. That's how the prenup came to be. Their attorney drafted a document clearly designed to protect Brittany's future inheritance. 12 pages of dense legal language ensuring any gifts, trusts, or family money would never touch me. Honestly, fine by me. My lawyer took one look at it and laughed. They've protected her completely, he said. But you're not protected at all, so we fixed that. We added clauses protecting my business, the commercial building, my house, and any retirement or investments I had before marriage. Then my attorney suggested something extra. You're young, he said. Your business is growing. You're going to buy more assets. Anything you acquire using business income should stay separate. That became a key point. For 3 weeks, our attorneys went back and forth. Richard's side wanted the increase in value of my business during the marriage to count as marital property, basically claiming half of my future work. That was a hard no. My client wants to protect family assets, my attorney told theirs. So does mine. Either both are protected or neither is. Richard tried pressure tactics, hinting they might rethink the wedding if I wasn't reasonable. I told Brittany to let him know I was perfectly fine skipping the big event and going to the courthouse. Instead, she panicked. Suddenly, compromise was back on the table. The final prenup locked down everything I owned before the marriage, and anything I bought using business funds during it. We also added a clause stating that anything acquired during the marriage using separate funds would remain separate property. In my case, separate funds meant income from my business. That single clause ended up saving me later. My attorney clearly defined separate funds as any money generated by my company, since I owned it before the marriage. That meant even income earned during the marriage was technically separate, as long as it came from the business. We also spelled out that any increase in value of separate property would stay separate. So if my house doubled in value during the marriage, that appreciation was still mine because the house was bought with my own funds before we ever got married. The language got pretty technical, stuff like any real estate, personal property, business interests, or financial accounts acquired with separate funds, as defined in Section 2, would remain the sole property of that party, including any appreciation, rents, profits, or returns tied to it. My attorney hesitated, saying the language might be too broad. I pushed back. I told him I was betting on myself. My business was going to grow. I was going to buy more property. I planned on building real wealth, and I wanted to make sure I kept what I earned if the marriage ever fell apart. Looking back, that insistence was probably the smartest move I made, second only to buying the commercial building. Brittany barely skimmed the prenup. We were sitting in the attorney's office on a Thursday afternoon, and she was glued to her phone, texting her bridesmaids about flowers or some other wedding detail while the lawyers explained the agreement. Her attorney, hired by Richard, which already felt sketchy, kept trying to get her attention. Miss Peterson, this is a legally binding contract that will determine how property is divided if you divorce, he said. You really should review these terms carefully. This protects his business and any property he acquires during the marriage using business funds. I don't care, Brittany cut in, not even looking up. I'm not marrying him for his money. My family has money. This prenup is just to get my parents to stop worrying about their precious inheritance. Can we just sign it and move on? I have a dress fitting in 40 minutes. Her attorney glanced at me with an apologetic look. Miss Peterson, I strongly recommend you at least read the summary. How much is my dad paying you? She snapped. Because you're supposed to make this easy, not assign homework. Where do I sign? He sighed and pointed to the signature lines. We both signed. The secretary notarized it right there in the office. We filed it properly with our marriage license the next day. Everything was done by the book, completely legal, fully enforceable, and completely ignored by Brittany, who thought it was a pointless formality. After that, we never discussed it again. The wedding itself was a massive production at a vineyard, with about 250 guests, most of whom I barely knew. Her parents paid for it and made sure everyone knew they paid for it. Richard's toast was basically a brag session about how no expense was spared to give their daughter the wedding she deserved. There was almost nothing about me or about us building a life together, just flex after flex about their money. The first couple of years of marriage were fine. Not amazing, but manageable. Brittany kept working at the dental office, though she started taking more and more time off for random things, shopping trips, spa days with her mom, long weekends at her parents' vacation place. She'd invite me sometimes, but I couldn't just disappear whenever I wanted. I had a business to run around year 2. Money started getting strange. She'd always liked spending, but it escalated fast. New boutique clothes every week. $300 hair appointments every 6 weeks at some upscale salon her mom went to. Nails done like clockwork every 2 weeks. She joined a high-end gym that cost around $200 a month, even though she barely went. Then she upgraded her car to a brand new Lexus RX 350, fully loaded, around $50,000, financed for 6 years because she deserved something nice. The payment alone was about $850 a month at first. I didn't say much. She made around $45,000 a year at the dental office, and I figured she could spend her money however she wanted. The problem was her income only covered about half her lifestyle. The rest was coming out of our joint account, which I was funding. I started noticing groceries on the credit card, gas charges, her car payment pulling from joint checking. She was living beyond her means and quietly relying on my income to make up the difference. Then, somehow, she started criticizing my spending. If I bought new commercial-grade tools for the shop, equipment that pays for itself on the first job, she'd roll her eyes. More tools? How many do you need? When I replaced one of our work trucks that had over 250,000 miles and was becoming unreliable, I found a well-priced 3-year-old Ford with low miles. She asked why I'd waste money on that junk, instead of buying brand new. The real explosion came when I put an extra $5,000 toward the mortgage on the commercial building. I'd had a strong month, landed a solid contract, and decided to knock down the principal to save on interest. When she saw the transfer, she lost it, yelling about how we could have gone to Hawaii with that money instead. We could be on a beach right now, sipping cocktails, she snapped one night. But instead you're dumping money into some building nobody even cares about. That building brings in $2,500 a month, I replied. It's an investment. Every extra dollar now saves 3 later, she rolled her eyes. Everything with you is about work, property, the future. When do we actually get to enjoy life? You're free to enjoy life with what you earn, I said, which, in hindsight, wasn't my brightest moment. She didn't speak to me for 3 days. After that, she started spending more time at her parents' place. Long brunches that turned into late nights. I'd get home from work and she'd already be gone. If I asked, I was controlling. It felt like she was more married to them than to me. By year 3, she quit her dental job without warning, said it was too stressful and she needed a break. For 6 months, she didn't work at all. I paid for everything: mortgage, bills, groceries, car, insurance. When I brought it up, she claimed she was taking care of the house, which mostly meant running the dishwasher. Eventually, she took a part-time boutique job, barely covering her own gas. Years 4 through 6 blurred together. We lived like roommates. Ate together maybe twice a week, barely talked, slept in the same house but lived separate lives. The physical side faded to nothing. I stopped trying and poured myself into work instead. I grew the business, opened a second location, bought more investment properties, all funded through the company and documented as separate under the prenup. Brittany barely noticed year 7 was the breaking point. One cold January night, I came home exhausted to find her waiting at the kitchen table with papers spread out. Nervous but excited. "We need to talk," she said. "I'm not happy. I think we should get divorced." I wasn't shocked. I agreed. That threw her off. She clearly expected a fight. Then she smiled and said she'd already talked to a lawyer. According to him, she was entitled to half of everything gained during the marriage: the house appreciation, retirement growth, business increase, plus spousal support. That's when I realized she hadn't actually read the prenup at all. I almost laughed when she said homemaker, but I kept a straight face. "So you've already talked to a lawyer?" I said. "Of course," she replied. "I know my rights." "Good for you," I said. "I'll have my attorney handle it." That threw her off. She asked if I didn't want to try counseling. I reminded her she'd already decided to leave and was planning to take half my assets. Counseling wasn't going to fix that. If she wanted out, I wanted it clean and quick. 2 days later, she moved back in with her parents. A week after that, I was served at work. Her filing demanded half the increase in my house and business value, part of my retirement, $3,000 a month in spousal support for 5 years, and the Lexus I'd been paying for. I called my attorney, Robert, the same guy who'd reviewed my prenup years ago. When he read it, he actually laughed. "She didn't read this, did she?" "Nope. Signed it to shut her parents up." He told me the prenup was airtight. My business, properties, house, and even business income earned during the marriage were protected. Spousal support would be minimal at best. At mediation, her lawyer came in confident, until Robert slid the prenup across the table and told him exactly where to read. I watched his expression change as he flipped through the pages. They asked for a private moment with Brittany. When they came back, their tone had completely changed. They tried to negotiate spousal support. Robert shut it down. She quit her job by choice, lived off my income, and could work full-time if she wanted. Then they tried to pivot to the house. Her lawyer kept insisting she was entitled to half the appreciation. Robert shut that down immediately. The house was bought before the marriage with my separate funds. All upgrades were paid from my business income, and the prenup clearly stated that any separate property, including appreciation, stayed separate. Same with the business. Value before marriage and growth during marriage were both protected, spelled out plainly in the agreement. I just sat there watching their confidence drain away. Brittany looked like she might cry. Her mom looked furious. When they asked what we were offering, Robert laid it out cleanly. Brittany keeps her personal belongings and anything she bought with her own money. She can keep the Lexus if she takes over the loan. No spousal support. We split filing fees. That's it. They called it outrageous. Robert reminded them this was the prenup her father demanded, and she signed without reading. Mediation ended with no deal, so we headed toward court. Over the next few months, discovery made things even worse for them. Every document showed the same thing. My business, properties, house, and accounts were all separate under the prenup. Robert organized everything into a thick binder that traced every dollar back to its source. Her side tried every angle, claiming she didn't have independent counsel, arguing coercion, saying the agreement was unfair. None of it stuck. The signing was witnessed, notarized, done months before the wedding, and both sides received equal protection. They even brought in an expert to argue she contributed to the household. Under questioning, it came out she didn't cook, clean, handle finances, or maintain the home. When Robert asked what she actually contributed, the best answer was emotional support. That didn't land. After that, her attorney kept trying to settle cash offers, car deals, anything. Robert said no every time. They'd expected an easy payout and instead were staring at a loss. Meanwhile, I felt lighter than I had in years. I worked, focused on the business, slept better. Turns out being alone was far less stressful than being married to someone who saw me as a paycheck. Mutual friends, si, pada chala ki Brittany ka dimag gum chuka tha. Use pura yakin tha ki wo muj court main clean sweep kergi. Gar, business, retirement, sab kuch. Dostan ko bada rahai thai ki settlement ki bod ake area main apartment legi or Europe gumni jayegi. Ob reality yathai ki usk hoth main surf capre or ek car loan regiatha dot usk parents ni ek or lawyer si prenup review karwia. Lekin jawab wahai tha, agreement bilkul valid or enforceable high. Brittany Barry Tarafaz chuki thai jun main Patricia ni muj phone kia. Bina salam ki boli, you need to be reasonable main seedha jawab dia. Brittany ni koi sacrifice nahi kia. Usni apni marzi si kam ch hoda, Mary income par gidi rahai. Or jablaga ki paisa malgatab divorce ka sacha. Prenup tumher husband kal idea tha main ni surf ipni cheese protect kaifer main call kat di or dono parents key numbers block car de. August main court date I. Judge ni prenup or SAR financial records deck. Brittany si pucha gayaki kaya usni agreement pat ha tha, uska jawab kamzer tha. Judge ni seedha kaha. You signed a legal document. Ob usk natij bugto dot decision mira favor main gaya. No spousal support. Gar, business, properties, retirement, sab mere pause. Brittany co-surf personal cheesin or Lexus Millie, loan key South September main divorce finalize ho gaya. Sat sol kai shadi katem. Or main wahai cheesin ki South bahar nikla jo main kud bandi thin. Kuch logan ko laga main sak tha. Lekin jo log sach jant thay. Unhun ni samjhakri kabar yathai ki Brittany wapas parents ki gar re rahai hai. Orab hai bisab ko Katie fiati hai ki main uski zindagi barbad kardi. Legal papers, however, bilkul different kahani bat 8 hain.